Hey jerks, welcome back to the Yellow Sheldon. This is Johnny. So tonight we are covering one of the many iterations of the automatic shifting Browning crankset. This knife, just here for effect, my trusty old Spyderco Military. Very nice piece. I've made it supremely ugly by grinding on it because I'm a piece of garbage. So, what do we have here? We have a crankset innocuously marked with one word, Browning. This Browning was Bruce W. Browning. Bruce worked on this with his sons, Mark, David, Paul, and Chris, and Bruce was actually the grandson of John Moses Browning, possibly the best and most prolific gun designer of all time. Now, you see I've written here, a more peaceful Browning auto. So Bruce Browning, rather than designing firearms, and I will say this, the bones of firearms engineering are sort of evident in here. When you look at the little leaf springs, when you look at the various catches and sears that help this shift, you can definitely see the ghost of his grandfather bleeding through on these. As far as I know, Bruce Browning started production on these, or at least started design on these, in the late 70s, early 80s. Initially, they were offered as a double BMX crank. Very strange. The one we have in front of us, though, is from 1990. This was contracted to be made by Suntour, and it was an upgrade that you could get on various XC Pro systems. I have never ever had one of these in situ. I've never had a Browning automatic shift crankset on a bicycle that I could pedal around. From what I've heard, you can really crank on these things, and because the derailleur is not mashing the chain up against the chain rings to get it to shift, you actually can really ram on it and not have very many problems. So what we have is a swinging gate. And I should mention, this is an electronic shifting system. This is fully a set of two buttons, up and down, and it only actuates the front shifting. A wire that goes to a box. This box has a 9-volt battery, and I'm so happy that I had a 9-volt around here. I generally don't have one, and I don't know if this is because the battery is drained or if the system requires a reset in order to shift, but if I click that to the middle, push either of the buttons, you can hear that little whine. Watch again. So, this little ramp, what it's doing is it is mounted using this clamp to the seat tube of your bicycle. There's a chain guard, so your chain won't come off here. And this chute, whether the corresponding piece in the crankset is channeled up or down, will cause an upshift or a downshift. So, what we have on here, this little fella here, this is what's doing all the shifting. Let's say you're in the middle ring and you want to go down a gear. You want to go, a hill's coming up, you want to go to the granny gear. It will move it. The entire quarter panel here will move in like this. So when the chain comes around, there's no longer chain ring in line to take up the chain. And so the chain comes down and slips onto the granny gear. if you want to execute an upshift, there's a ramp which pulls the chain up. They were still attempting to market this up to the early 2000s. At that point, what they had done is they had designed a rear derailleur that was automatic as well. And it had two different modes. You know, there was a computer-controlled mode, which would work somewhat like Shimano's coasting, whatever their product was that was automatic electronic shifting. Or, if you spend your time not sleeping and watching late-night TV, you'll remember the Land Rider bicycles that had a centrifugal mass, and when a little flywheel would spin up fast enough, it would execute a shift. So these, you could set them to automatically shift for you, and front and rear would trim themselves and would shift based on your cadence, or you could set it to manual mode and you could shift up and down. And this is a photograph of the early 2000s double automatic shifting model. You can see that there is no derailleur hanger on this custom bicycle. This is from the Northwest, by the way. This bike belongs to one of the Brownings, a woman, I believe, and I think it might have been a test bed. It's probably a Davidson or a Rodriguez. So you have a mount here, and you can see cables coming from here to here, and this is probably a slightly better battery pack than a 9-volt battery. And yeah, these two things would shift together. I wish I had more information. I pulled out the manual for this guy, and it's on old mimeograph paper. It's very, very difficult to read. I've tried to get through some of it, tried to piece together as much as I could from online, but I mean, this is just cool to have, but it's pretty much worthless. And I want to say that the construction of this is just beautiful. The attention to detail and the precision manufacturing on this is just wonderful. I mean, these cranks are pretty scratched up, but they have a beautiful luster to them. Made in Taiwan. Just really nicely finished. You know, if I hadn't seen that made in Taiwan, I would have guessed probably highest end Japanese production. They're just that nice. So as far as I know, they're not still trying to sell this product. I mean, they kind of missed the boat. Once we started to have really nice electronic shifting groups, it's like, why would you ever have this crazy Frankenstein added complexity crank? I mean, this thing really weighs a ton. The moving bits are made from steel, so we've got aluminum quarter chain rings, and then there's going to be more wear in these parts, so they are steel. And again, we have a small flat spring here that returns it to 0 when the chain rings are climbing up, when they're shifting to the up position. And we have another spring, well, it's back behind here, that is helping it return to 0 when it is shifting down. Quick side note, if you're watching this and you're screaming right now, that's not up, that's not down. I always transpose them, and I always have. And I'll tell you one thing, I always will transpose high and low gear and up and down. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. I'm a madman. So this is just a quick toss-off video. I was so pleased to find out that we had the shifter. You know, I really did think, well, it's going to be hard to describe how this functions if I can't find the shifting unit, but there it is. As far as this goes, and this was the Suntour Beast. It's Beast stood for Browning Electronic AccuShift Transmission. I think that the rear derailleur was just a normal XC Pro mountain derailleur. I don't think, I mean, it's very strange to say, yeah, you got this electric shifting, you know, it's super duper awesome, and then not really do anything with the rear, you know. To me, rear shifting is really where I want quick shifts, this sort of accuracy. I mean, although maybe I'm could be being a total moron right now. Look at the gap between the jump between the teeth on a triple. You know, that's far greater than you may experience in the rear. You know, you usually have 1 or 2 tooth jumps, sometimes 3 or 4 if you have like a mega range or something, but you have very small jumps in the rear. So it's, and again, not having ridden this, I don't know how great it felt. It could be that this really sped up the shifts and really helped to alleviate some of the problems you get with front shifting when, you know, you don't have enough cable tension, or you're really, really cranking on the cranks. You know, a lot of times you'll miss a shift, the chain will just rub against the chainring until you let off steam a little bit. I don't know how this felt, and I almost don't want to know. What a cool design, though. I always used to get this and another design confused. There was another design, I don't know who made it, but I'll look around and see if we have one. It basically used sliding pieces of chain rings. So imagine that this is abbreviated here, 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 and here on all the rings. And, or maybe there's only one ring. I'm misremembering this like an MFer, but listen, you'd spin faster, and all of these sections of chainring were on weighted shafts. And so the faster you spun your cranks, the bigger your effective chainring would be, you know, increasing the gear ratio. So you have these shafts, all these pieces are weighted, and your chain is like skipping over sections of it as it gets larger. Very strange system, and I only saw it once in Colorado when I was working out there. But I'll try to track one down and put it up. Yeah, short video tonight. Another failed electronic shifting system. But just as cool as Mavic Zap, honestly. The peaceful Browning. The peaceful Browning automatic. Good night.